Keeper of the Lost Cities, Everblaze, Chapter 47. If what's true, Dex repeated, and if you tell me it's nothing, I swear I'm going to slip an honesty elixir into your next bottle of lushberry juice. You don't even make those, Sophie argued, hoping it was true. I can figure out how, he promised. Sophie glared at Sandor, wondering what the point was of having a goblin constantly eavesdropping outside her door, if he couldn't give her a little heads up about surprise visitors. He shrugged innocently, but the glint in his eye told her he'd been keeping silent on purpose. Probably his punishment for the trouble she'd caused with King Dimitar. Seriously, what were you guys talking about? Dex asked. I'm not going to freak out. It was just a joke, okay? Fitz told him, looking like he wished he could leap out of there. What kind of joke? Dex pressed. And what is that? Sophie shoved Mr. Snuggles behind her back. Just something Fitz brought to cheer me up. How nice of him. It was, actually, Sophie told him, a little sharper than she meant to. She'd been trying not to let it bother her, but she'd been through a fire, a funeral, and almost been kidnapped by an ogre king, and Dex hadn't even hailed her on her imparter to make sure she was okay. I'm sorry I haven't come by sooner, Dex mumbled, like he knew exactly what she'd been thinking. I've been stuck working on an assignment from the council. Really? Fitz asked. At the same time, Sophie asked, what assignment? I'm not allowed to talk about it, but you don't have to worry. It's totally safe. I'm just testing some gadgets to see if I can prove them. Oh, and get this. I showed Counselor Tarek my telepathy enhancer, and he thought it had great potential. Seriously? Fitz asked. He actually thinks you can enhance someone's ability? No, Dex admitted, but he thinks I might be able to restrict somebody's ability instead. I haven't had time to tweak it yet because they needed me to finish up the other gadgets first. But I think I know what I need to do to make that change. Why would the council want to restrict someone's abilities? Fitz asked, clearly disgusted by the idea. Sophie was more bothered by Dex's little slip. Were the counselors making weapons? Because some people shouldn't be allowed to have abilities, Dex argued. Allowed? Fitz repeated. Yeah, allowed. Think about it. Restricting Finton's ability would have saved Counselor Kenrick's life, and his own life, and all of Eternalia. But Sophie started, then realized she had nothing to say. The counselors had done everything they could to keep the healing safe, but they could only control the temperature, their clothes, and how many people were in the room. They couldn't control Finton. Okay, but controlling people with gadgets? Fitz asked. That's creepy. He turned to Sophie, like he was expecting her to agree, but she was too stuck on the idea that the whole fire could have been prevented with a simple silver circlet. They wouldn't be controlling everyone, Dex argued, just the people who need it. And who decides that? Fitz asked. The council, obviously. What? Dex asked, when Fitch cringed. I thought your family was like the council's #1 fan club. You clearly know nothing about my family, but I'm not saying I don't trust the council. I'm saying I don't think it's right to mess with people's brains. Ha! This is coming from a telepath. Telepaths have rules and restrictions to follow to make sure we don't abuse our abilities. Sounds like technopaths need the same. The council is the one asking me to make the gadgets, remember? Yeah, that's what worries me. I think I'm going to go home and see if my dad knows about this. Want to meet up tomorrow and try again? Fitz asked Sophie as he packed away his memory log. She nodded, still trying to process the information overload from the last few minutes. Fitz gave one quick, longing look to Mr. Snuggles as he pulled out his home crystal. Then he left him behind and stepped into the light. So, what was that joke I'm apparently going to freak out about? Dex asked, the second Fitz glittered away. Sophie sighed and set Mr. Snuggles on her bed. It was nothing, Dex. Really, honestly, nothing. You're seriously not going to tell me? Not right now, okay? It's not important, and maybe you haven't noticed, but I'm kind of having a bad week. Her voice caught on the last words. You're right, Dex said, moving closer. No excuses. I'm sorry. Thanks, Sophie mumbled, wiping her nose. He reached for her hand, then stopped halfway there, leaving his fingers dangling. I'm sorry I didn't check on you. I begged my dad to let me help with the Everblaze, mostly so I could make sure you were okay, but he said I wasn't experienced enough to handle quintessence, so I stayed up all night watching my panic switch in case you called me. I even kept my shoes on so I wouldn't have anything to slow me down, but you never called. I'm not going to drag you into danger, Dex, but I want you to. That's why I made you the ring. And I'm sorry I let the council's assignment keep me from checking on you. Though I also wasn't at the planting, so I didn't know about King Dimitar until today. That's why I rushed over. Why weren't you at the planting? Counselor Tarek needed all the gadgets back by this morning so he could pass them on to the next technopath, and they needed a ton of work. You can stop calling them gadgets, Dex. I know they're weapons. He hesitated before he said, not all of them. Besides, don't you think it's good the council is realizing they need to be prepared? My dad said if they'd had a batch of frisson on hand, most of Eternalia would still be standing. Yeah, I guess. But if the elves needed weapons? She sat on the side of her bed, and Dex sat next to her, not so subtly, knocking Mr. Snuggles to the floor in the process. You sure you're okay? He asked. You look pretty awful. Gee, thanks. No, I just mean, you can talk to me, maybe I can help. Sophie wished he could, but unless he knew how to find a random window in Italy... Wait, she said, rushing to her desk and digging through the drawers. If she wanted to learn about anything human, she was going to need to access human information. She pulled out her old iPod and switched it on, showing Dex how it said searching on the screen. I know this is probably going to sound weird, but do you think there's any way you could make it pick up human signals from where we are? He'd already made it solar-powered a few months back. Maybe he could use his ability to amplify the antenna or something. Dex traced his fingers along the screen. What kind of signals? Anything. Satellite, Wi-Fi. I just need to access the internet. Remember how I used it to find the bridge we needed when we were in Paris? Yeah, and I still can't believe that clunky machine was able to help us. But he flipped the iPod over and squinted at the back. I can sense a receiver in here, and it's super weak. I'm sure if I boost it, it'll pick up whatever you want. It might take me a few days, though. Counselor Tarek wants that ability restrictor as soon as possible. A few days is fine, she told him, though she hoped it would be sooner. And there was a famous round windowsinitaly.com, complete with detailed directions. But even if there wasn't, she was going to find that building. After Dex left, Sophie spent the rest of the afternoon trying to make a dent in the other half of her punishment. Cleaning and organizing Edeline's office. She was up to her elbows in tiny silver butterflies when someone behind her snapped their fingers, making all the shimmering insects spring to life and fly around her. Whoa! Too bad those aren't spiders or stink bugs or something, Keith said from the doorway. I could cause some serious chaos. I'm sure you could, Sophie agreed, watching the butterflies flit and flutter. It really would have been a beautiful wedding, wouldn't it? Maybe, Keith agreed. But robotic spiders would have been cooler. They could have put them under somebody's chairs and triggered them during the vows. Wow, you should be a wedding planner. Nah, I'll save that for my own wedding. Make my bride feel even luckier, he winked. So what's up, Sophie asked, before the conversation got any weirder. You don't know why I'm here? Should I? I don't know. Didn't you forget one of these? He stumbled through the maze of boxes and handed her a tiny scroll. The wax seal had been broken, split in half for when Keith must have opened it. But Sophie could still perfectly make out the sign of the swan.